Welcome back, everyone. It's so good to be here with you. Now, if you constantly are being drawn into toxic relationships with narcissistic people, whether it's romantic relationships or friendships, then chances are you are being attracted to the wrong things. More specifically, you're drawn to the attachment of the relationship as opposed to any true connection. Well, how do you know the difference? I found an article that we're going to read together, 8 signs that you're confusing attachment for connection in your relationships according to psychology. Let's see if any of these 8 signs resonate with you. My name is Kevin, and this is The Royal We. Speaking of attachment, toxic relationships, I found a video clip that we've got to watch together, and let me know what your thoughts are.
Men who are good at sex tend to be less tolerant of bad behavior in women. It is really that simple. And the reason being is because men that are bad at sex, what happens is they think only one woman can satisfy them, which is their partner. They don't want to go somewhere else. They're almost a bit embarrassed to go find another woman, or a bit shy to go find another woman. They think, oh, I have to hold on to this partner. Men who are very good at sex will say, if you can't behave correctly, if you can't respect me, if you are not good at what you're doing and you are not treating me well, bye. Bye. They don't see one woman as irreplaceable, because they know that they are the cause of good sex. They know that they are the one that are going to have good intimacy elsewhere. It's not about the woman. Men that are bad at sex will think the woman is creating the great sex, and so they can only be with her, and so they tolerate all her disrespect. So you lose all your power when you are not good at intimacy.
This woman seems smart. Too smart to be peddling this type of nonsense and garbage out there. I think we have to back up a little bit here. Number one, man who is really good at sex and is going to weaponize it against you as though you are replaceable as a woman, well, chances are he looked at you as being replaceable since the beginning of the relationship. I feel like this is advice that would circulate within the porn industry for some reason. I tend to agree with John Mayer. How many of you know John Mayer, right? It's the woman's body that's the wonderland. Your body is the wonderland, right? Women are the gatekeepers of sex. You women are the prize. You women are the reward, not the man. I mean, look, a penis is a penis. It really is just a one-trick pony. And I feel as though a guy who's going to come into a relationship knowing that he is good, I guess, or thinking that he's better than every other penis or whatever the heck the mindset is, which sounds stupid to me. I feel if he's going to weaponize that so that if a woman's misbehaving, meaning she's not making sandwiches on time and doing the dishes and whatever else, well, he's just going to skedaddle out and find another woman to have sex with because he views women as replaceable. I feel like this woman should do more of a service to women out there. A guy like that absolutely needs to go. You women out there, you do not need to allow any man to weaponize sex, to come into a relationship and be like, ooh, my penis is better than all penises. I've got the golden penis. It's bullshit. It's not true. It's a one-trick pony. And it's important for you women to understand this. You women are what makes the sex exciting. Don't ever let this type of nonsense be pushed onto you that a man can come in and offer nothing but a good penis, for whatever the heck that even means. And if you're misbehaving and not doing X, Y, and Z and paying them, which is typically what happens with these types of guys, they want money, they want you to do the dishes, they want all this stuff. Well, they'll just go and bring their sex somewhere else. Listen, you need a man in your life who's going to provide more than just a penis. And I think you women out there know this, especially those of you who have been in abusive relationships. I'm hoping that you're listening to this and you see it the way I do, and that this woman is full of garbage and she's kind of peddling the wrong thing. She's getting women to grab onto this idea that, oh, this guy's so good at sex, I better do dishes and I better make a sandwich and I better do all these things and not make him mad. Otherwise, he's going to skip out on me. If a guy's going to do that, he was going to do that from the beginning anyways. This, by the way, leads into what we're talking about, because what this woman is, in fact, discussing here is a form of attachment. She's really hitting on something that I think we all need to be aware of, and that's attachment in relationships instead of a true connection. And yes, sex can actually be an attachment as opposed to a true connection. Now, before we dive into this article, let me remind you that I'm here to support you. Down in the description box right below this video, you'll find access for one-on-one appointments with me. I take telephone calls and video calls through Zoom, FaceTime, and WhatsApp. So if you constantly are finding yourself drawn into toxic relationships because you're attached to something, either they're sexy or they're funny or whatever the case may be, and you're getting over it, you're really ready for a true connection in life, head on down there, schedule some time with me. And by the way, if you're having a hard time finding the description box, all you got to do is go right below this video. You'll see the little dots where it says more. Click on that, and that'll pop open the description box. So head on down there, find out all about that. Now, let's get into this article. 8 signs you're confusing attachment for connection in your relationships according to psychology, because it's not easy to know the difference between attachment and true connection. We've been conditioned to go into relationships based on what we're attached to. Again, the obvious ones of attachment are, ooh, they're sexy, they're good looking. Well, that's just an attachment. Oh, they're funny. That's an attachment. Oh, they remind me of my family members. That's just an attachment. None of these things are really a true connection with the person. But let's see what we can find here in this article. See if it resonates with you, because the goal is to make sure we are steering clear of toxic relationships. Most toxic relationships with narcissists begin as an attachment-based relationship. This is why it's so important we talk about this. The first thing you're going to recognize in a relationship that is attachment-based is your conversations are superficial. I would absolutely agree with this. Let's read a little bit about what it says here. It says the engine of any connection, be it platonic, a friendship, or romantic, runs on the fuel of meaningful conversations. That's right. How deep can you get? That's where your connection is. How vulnerable can you be? Not just can you be in the relationship, but how vulnerable are they with you? If they're not, if all you're talking about in a relationship is where you're going to eat, what party you're going to go to, or what food you're going to have, or what movie you're going to watch, all of this stuff, then your conversations are very superficial. How many of you have been in a relationship with a narcissistic person, and as you look back in hindsight, all of the conversations that you've had were very superficial? They weren't very deep. You never really got to the core of who they were. You never were able to express the core of who you are, even. That's an indication that you're dealing with a relationship, that you're in it for the attachment. You're attached to something. You're attached to an idea. You're attached to their look. And there's something keeping you from having deep, meaningful conversations, and it's keeping everything surface level. So I would definitely agree with this. If your conversations in a relationship are superficial at best, that means that the whole relationship is most likely an attachment and not a true connection. And it's probably dangerous. You may want to start to get your way out of that relationship and keep moving forward until you find true connection. Moving on to number 2. You feel uneasy sharing your true self. Absolutely. Well, now this speaks to that first one, right? It's because you're uneasy when you're around this person sharing your true self. That's keeping you from being vulnerable and having deep conversations. And so naturally, you're only going to be having shallow, superficial conversations. In other words, you're walking on eggshells without even realizing it. If you're in a relationship and you feel as though you can't really talk about certain things, you're nervous, you want to craft your words. Why? This is where you have to stop and ask yourself, why? What's holding me back? Why am I not articulating myself? Why am I not able to get deep? Why am I not able to express my emotions here? Why am I not able to really express what I want? Well, again, it's because you're in the relationship because you're attached to something. Well, they're too good looking. I don't want to mess this up. Oh, they have too high status. So I don't want to mess this up. So I'm going to hide. I'm going to stuff. I'm going to feel uneasy about being vulnerable and about being my real self. This right here, folks, my friends, is one of the biggest reasons you end up in toxic relationships. Is from the get-go, you feel uneasy. Oftentimes it can be called butterflies in your stomach. You might just feel it's nervousness right? That nervousness, that uneasy feeling about sharing your true self. How many of you have gone on dates and felt nervous, too nervous to open up, too nervous to be yourself? What's crazy is we've been conditioned to believe that that's okay. Everybody's nervous on the first date. I mean, I guess you're going to have butterflies, but to what extent? If it's to the extent that you're unable to share who you really are, and so you start to even put on a mask, right? So you start to put on a mask, you start to only agree and laugh at their stupid jokes and whatever else, you're kind of pretending. It's all from this uneasiness. What if that uneasiness, what if that nervousness that you're feeling, what if it is your body signaling red flags that this is not a relationship of true connection, it's a relationship of attachment. You're already starting to gain an attachment to it as opposed to a connection. It's already starting off bad. So I would say if you're meeting friends or you meet somebody and you're feeling this nervousness to the point to where you're uneasy sharing your true self, that's bad news. That's a toxic relationship right from the get-go. All right? I agree with that. Number three is that you're more in love with the idea of them than the actual person. Now you can see how all of these things actually relate, because the less you're able to really talk with somebody and build a connection and get to know them, well, you're left with what? You're left with your imagination. You're left with your idea of them. There's a lot of people out there that's like, listen, I like this guy, just I hope he doesn't speak because it'll ruin it for me, right? Or I like this girl, I just don't want her to talk because it'll ruin it. Well, what's really being said there? What's being said is I'm attached to this image. I want to have my mind and my imagination made up about this person, and they're sexy, they're this, and they've got this status or whatever, and I don't want anything to ruin that. It's bad, it's fake, it's not real, it's not a connection, it's an attachment. This is something that we have to be very careful of here, folks. If you're more in love with the idea of a person, meaning they really don't connect with you well, they're not a good match for you, you don't have a lot in common, all you have is your ideas, that's bad. It's going to crash. It's going to fall away. It's not going to last. So if you find yourself in a relationship where you're constantly thinking of the idea of them, but you're really not even getting to know them and you really don't know them, that's a dangerous place to be. It's actually out of a place of your attachment to them, your attachment to the idea of them, than it is to actually having a connection with the person. In order to have a relationship that does not end up toxic or abusive, you need to have a connection as opposed to just an attachment. You can see this is how you start to blindly go into a relationship. Moving on to number four. Number four is that you're more focused on avoiding conflict than fostering growth. Yes. A lot of times in relationships, you will shy away, especially if it's an attachment-based relationship, you'll shy away from any conflict. And this is problematic because what it's saying, if you are avoiding conflict with a person, whether it's a friend or a romantic partner especially, if you're avoiding conflict, what it means is that inside you do not feel safe around that person. You don't feel safe around what their response is going to be. And oftentimes your body can tell just by looking at a person whether they're safe or not. A lot of times people who avoid conflict get the bad rap. Maybe that's you. Maybe you've done a lot of research and you've looked online and you discovered that you're a conflict avoidant. You're an avoidant personality. Listen, that's incorrect. That's wrong. You are capable of conflict. You're capable of mutual understanding, talking things out. But that's what you need in order to have a healthy conflict. Conflict in a relationship, a friendship, or a romantic partnership is supposed to be a healthy conflict where you're able to wrestle and argue and get your points across, but you have to make sure and you have to know, and your body needs to sense that that person's going to listen and you're going to really give it to each other in an understanding way so that you can grow forward. But when you're with somebody and you find yourself avoiding conflict, it's for a reason. It's because your internal warning systems, your red flags are saying this person is not somebody who is going to safely have conflict with you. You might get stuff thrown at you. You might be called names, cussed at, yelled at, screamed at, pushed, shoved. And it's interesting, but your body knows this. We have tremendous senses. We have unfathomable discernment that we've been given by our Creator, that we have been taught to ignore all of our lives. Listen, folks, you have at least 6 senses that we know, right? 6 senses, being your eyes, your ears, your mouth, touch, smell, feel, all right? Those are the ones we know about. But you have other senses that we really don't talk about. Discernment, your spidey senses, when your hairs go up on your arms. We have so many things, so many alarms within our body that, yes, you will know when it's safe and when it's not safe to confront a person or to engage in conflict. And if you're in a relationship with a friend or somebody you're dating, a romantic partner, and for some reason you're shying away from conflict, well, it means that you're shutting down. It means that it's not safe. And oftentimes we blame ourselves. You might blame yourself. Oh, there I go again, being avoidant. Wrong. Maybe you need to listen to yourself. Maybe you need to start asking why. Why am I avoiding conflict with this person? And if I'm avoiding conflict, how can we ever be in a relationship together? Perhaps you need to end this relationship and seek a partnership where you are safe to engage in healthy conflict. All right, moving on to number 5. You feel more anxious than secure. Obviously, if you're around a person, a friend, or a potential romantic partner, or even a boyfriend or girlfriend, and you're always anxious around that person, and you're going to be anxious, especially if, like we talked about here, number 4, you're more focused on avoiding conflict. This automatically makes you anxious. This is going to cause you to walk on eggshells around the person. And so, yes, you're going to feel anxious as a natural result, a natural consequence, if you will, of not being authentic. Listen, anytime you're in a relationship and you're not authentic, you're not able to express yourself, you're not able to share your thoughts, your concerns, your feelings, you're not connecting, you're not talking, you're not able to be vulnerable, you're not able to confront issues, you're not able to have that healthy conflict. If you're not able to do these things, then you absolutely are going to start to feel anxious because you've got nothing. You've got nothing in the relationship except to walk on eggshells, to tiptoe, and to just focus on what you're attached to, whether it's the sex, whether it's their hair, their eyes, their humor. We are not meant to live and to exist in relationships where you are not able to be an authentic, true version of yourself. And that's what a connection truly is. Only a relationship that's an attachment will have you avoiding being authentic, being true to yourself, articulating yourself. And as a consequence, you're going to feel anxious. You're never going to feel at complete peace in the relationship. You're going to find yourself needing to be away from them more than with them. All right. So if you feel anxious, more anxious than secure, by the way, you only feel secure in a relationship out of complete honesty, complete vulnerability. That's when you feel secure in a relationship. They're vulnerable with you, you're vulnerable with them. And then time. Time allows you to build that confidence in the relationship, not trust. You do not want to have trust in a relationship. Trust doesn't exist. I feel like I have to address this too here for you all. Trust in a relationship does not exist. Trust is a part of an attachment. All right? Trust is not a part of a connection. What is trust? Trust is nothing more than you using your imagination, your hope, and your faith to fill in the gap of what you don't know about another person. That's what trust is. It's not real. It's your imagination. It's what you don't know. It's the absence of knowledge. I don't know this person, but I'm going to make up in my mind that it's okay, that they're fine, that they're not going to hurt me, blah, 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 on and on. That's trust. You can see how trust isn't real. Yes, we've all bought into this idea that we need to trust people in relationships. That's a form of attachment. I say through being vulnerable, being able to articulate yourself, being able to have meaningful, deep conversations, you won't have to trust the person. Why? Because you'll have knowledge of the person. You'll have knowledge of the person. This is where we need to go with relationships. You want the security of knowing the person, not having to trust the person. Right? That will help you to avoid toxic relationships. Absolutely. Number six is that you're more invested in the relationship than your partner. Yes, absolutely. If you are in a relationship out of attachment as opposed to a true connection, well, that's one of the things that you're going to notice. I believe that what takes place in a relationship, based on what I've seen through my decade of coaching, is that you like the person out of an attachment. You're not able to be vulnerable. They're not vulnerable with you, but doggone it, they sure are cute. They have beautiful eyes. They have big muscles. They're sexy. They're good in bed, right? They got to, whatever the case may be. You, in your mind, need to justify being in the relationship because deep down at your soul level, deep in your heart, you know that you cannot just be in a relationship simply because they're sexy, or simply because they've got blue eyes, or simply because they've got dark hair, or big muscles, or they're greasy, or whatever the heck you're attracted to. So your body and your mind is going to try to justify, which means you are going to mentally make yourself invest more in the relationship. You're going to give more, you're going to do more out of justifying your reason for even being there. It's a strange phenomenon that takes place. But when you don't have a true connection, you mentally start to justify your being in the relationship, which means you start doing more things, you start trying harder to make up for that lack of true connection because there's no peace. So you're scrambling to try to figure out how to create peace. And you think that by giving more, by doing more, by making more food, by giving them money, by giving them more sex, by doing all these things, you feel as though you're justifying the relationship. The reality is if you find yourself giving more and investing more in a relationship than what you're receiving, it's probably because you're in a relationship because you're attached to something, not because there's a true connection. This is what causes a lot of narcissistic abuse, folks. Number seven is that you're more focused on the past than the present. This is an interesting one. I'm not exactly sure where this one's going in this article, but let's read it together. It says here, reflecting on my relationship, I noticed that I was often stuck in the past. I was holding on to memories of better times, reminiscing about the initial days when everything felt perfect. Okay, so yes, oftentimes in a toxic relationship, you're love bombed in the beginning. And this makes sense. You're love bombed, which can form a what? An attachment. You become attached to all the good things in the beginning of the relationship, the love bombing. A true connection was never formed. So once again, in order to justify staying in the relationship, you're left with looking back at the love bombing stage because that is what got you attached to the relationship. So this is absolutely true. If you're looking back at the beginning of the relationship and you're wishing and you're hoping and you're waiting for that person or those times to come back, well, number one, they never will. You're in a relationship with the past because you're in a relationship out of an attachment to what you experienced. This goes into deeper territory as well. Oftentimes you can find yourself addicted to the narcissistic person that you've been with, or that friend or the family member, or especially that person you were dating. You can find yourself addicted. Why? Because what took place in the past, that attachment, excited your biochemistry, all your serotonin and your adrenaline and all the wild times and the sex or whatever the case may be. It really just formed this super strong attachment that created an addiction. And so as the relationship progressed, things start dying down. You find yourself, because there's no connection to keep the relationship going forward, you find yourself constantly looking back. I want what was back there. I want that love bombing stage. This often happens later on in toxic relationships. This is why people stay stuck, is because of the attachment and looking back to the past, being focused on the past. Never stay in a relationship focused on the past. If you're in a relationship and the best times of the relationship were in the past and all you're doing now is waiting, you're sitting and waiting to feel those feelings again, know that you got into a relationship out of attachment, not connection, and also know that those things are never coming back. Unless you're in a relationship of connection and moving forward, you will be stuck in a relationship where you are simply ruminating about the past. Very dangerous place to be, folks. All right. Number 8, you can't imagine a future without them despite the issues. This is an interesting one. Let's read this one together as well. It says, in my relationship, despite the issues and the struggles, I found it hard to imagine my life without my partner. It was like they had become a part of me, an extension of my existence. Yet, I wasn't happy. The relationship wasn't fulfilling. I was stuck in a cycle of dissatisfaction and confusion. Absolutely. Oftentimes, if you find yourself in a relationship where you can't imagine what the future would be like without them, and again, you're grabbing onto the past. So you're attached to the idea that you had of the past. There's no connection, which means there's no real talk about moving forward. There is no moving forward. And it's a phenomenon, but yes, you can find yourself not able to move forward. You can't imagine life without them. Again, it's all a lot of addictive patterns. It's all a lot of ruminating patterns. But whatever the case may be, you don't want to be in a relationship where you're unhappy. It's not going anywhere. It's not progressing. Yet, as it says here, you can't imagine your life without them. This is, in fact, an indication that you're attached to something and there's not a true connection. A true connection would have you feeling fulfilled on a daily basis. A true connection would have peace on a daily basis. A true connection and relationship would constantly be moving you forward. If that's not taking place, you're in a relationship based on attachment only. And that's it. I hope that this video has reached some of you, resonates with you. It's important that we understand the difference between an attachment and a true connection. Where are you at in your relationships right now? Are you in relationships based on an attachment, or do you have true connections? And how do we start to move forward to find true connections and stop with these attachment-based relationships? As I said before, I'm here to support you. Down in the description box, you'll find access for one-on-one appointments with me. If you're having trouble finding the description box, simply go right below this video, click on the 3 dots where it says more. That will expand the description box. You can schedule one-on-one time with me. You can download the membership app where we do have fellowship once a week and so much more on the privacy of a members-only app. So you don't want to miss out on that opportunity. And I'll be back with more videos for you right here on The Royal We. If you're brand new to the channel, hit subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell notification so you don't miss any future Royal We content. And I'll see you soon.